world-renowned chef Art Smith, the journey began in a small, humble town in northern Florida and took him into the dining room with the likes of Oprah Winfrey, Princess Diana, and even the Dalai Lama. When Chef Art is cooking, everyone is welcome at the table, whether it's visitors to his many restaurants or on location, feeding a world traumatized by hurricanes, war, and poverty. Together with his husband, artist Jesus Salguero, Art is always looking for the next table to serve, whether it's with their own family of 4 children or with a younger generation of chefs and restaurant workers who find inspiration in the charitable community that they have built. It's my great honor to have Chef Art Smith join me today on this episode of Supper with Sylvia. Art Smith, my friend, how are you? So good to see you.
So good to see you. Good evening, Sylvia, my dear.
Well, I have to say, I'm so happy that you're joining me because you have had one heck of a week. So I just want to start with that right off the bat. For people who don't know, I am talking to Art right after his hometown of Jasper has been hit by Hurricane Helene. We've just had Milton. So we're on the heels of a week where Art Smith has been doing what he always does, and that's been trying to help people. Tell me about these fundraisers that you had this week and why.
Well, Sylvia, Jesus and I were in Iceland, and I'd always wanted to go to Iceland, and it's so scenic and beautiful. And we were there, and I knew about there was a storm, but we never really kind of took it very seriously because they usually kind of go out to sea or whatever. And we were in Iceland, and I kept hearing something about maybe coming to Florida. And then we were in Iceland exactly 10 days, and we kept hearing that it was getting close to Florida. And then when we arrived in Florida, in the States, I got word that it was headed for the Panhandle. And then by the time I got to Chicago, we heard that it was going to hit the Big Bend, and they said approximately it was going to hit an area called Steenhatchee, which is actually 64 miles from Jasper, my birthplace. My family has lived there over 100 years. I'm the only Smith that has left the area. So it was just, I was just kind of a little bit heartbreaking that I'm not there. I'm in Chicago, my other adopted hometown, and I wanted to do something. And a friend of mine called me and said, Art, I'm with what really got me really started was my friend Arlen calls me and says, Art, Jose Andres group, the World Central Kitchen, is sending me to Jasper. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, is that serious? And he said, yes. And I said to myself, Jose Andres, who I love and adore, is going to Jasper, but their chef isn't there. So I'm saying to myself, I'm their chef. I need to be there too. And but the reality is that the area in which Helene hit, it's so vast. And Jose is so overwhelmed with that quite honestly, he couldn't do it all by himself. So with the help of Arlen and with the help of another group called Operation Barbecue Rescue, we've been able to feed more people. In fact, when this day is just 2 days ago, we fed 1,100 people. And I still get calls from people telling me what's going on, what's happened, and everything. Sylvia, this is the problem. The problem is that when you have a natural disaster as such, and this is what's happened, particularly even as far up as North Carolina. Now, everyone thinks of places as Florida, sunshine, beautiful beaches. I don't want to see another beach house, okay? I don't want to see another multi-million-dollar beach house. I don't want to see a fancy mountain, beautiful, et cetera, villa, whatever. Okay, the reality is wherever there's wealth like there's extreme poverty. We know that, okay? I worked enough in the Hamptons. I know what's behind that, okay? There's a lot of poor people. And in that area, there's a lot of poor people, and up and all through that area a lot. And when you have people that are so close to the poverty line, and when natural disaster hits, it is so detrimental. And these people cannot get on their feet like as fast as like people would think they can. They can't. They just can't. It totally upsets their world. And I think that we think, okay, the storm's hit and it's over. No, it's not over. That storm continues over and over in their lives. As an American citizen, I feel it's our duty to take care of our citizens. We live in a big, noisy world, and I'm all about diplomacy. But honey, diplomacy starts at home, okay?
So let's talk about that, because you are boots on the ground. You're talking about you're feeding all of these people. Explain to our listeners what exactly you're doing. How does this work? I mean, it sounds like an incredible effort.
Well, how it works is this. One of the things that you do, and I've always done is you do it with a lot of friends, and you do it with people that you have strategic relationships with. I'm unable to be there, but I have a friend who has a facility and a truck and all of this, and they're able to, I supply the funds, they make the food, they transport it, they distribute it. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. And then, and other things like I supply the help and the money to help cut trees and limbs and things of that sort.
Tell me about Jasper. Growing up in Jasper, how did that make you the person you are today, the chef that you are today, the philanthropist you are today?
I come from a family of really, they don't give money, they get food. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They give the offering in the church, but they would never think of like giving money to a philanthropic concern. That's not part of their, but they would make food for something and take it. That's just how they do. My mama would make some cakes or some pies or make some covered dishes, as they call them, and take them. That's their way of doing it. And in all honesty, that costs money and they do it, but that's their philanthropy. It's food philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with that. Everything was food in good times, food in sad times. We feed you when you're born. We feed you when you die. We feed you when you get married. We feed you. I think we even feed you when you get divorced. Okay. We feed you. And so food, glorious food, never enough of it. Mm-hmm. But, Jasper is a small little town. It was historically a town that it's had different types of businesses and industries that had made it throughout in the years. The town is over 100 years old, and tobacco is a major industry. And tobacco was what my daddy did. And then, of course, when daddy said, well, my father was a trip. My father was part politician, a little everything. I mean, he was just, he said, and he always wanted me to be a lawyer or a politician.
Okay.
He did not like the idea of me being a chef. He said to son, he said, son, I don't know why you want to work in some kitchen. I said, Daddy, the kind of kitchens I want to work in, I don't think you really have an idea. Because he didn't realize that I was going to use my skills, which he saw, and I was using my skills and my abilities to cook as a way to get to people and get to what I want.
So you've written how many cookbooks now? 4, is that right? I know. It's hard to keep count. And let's start with that, because as you count, I think the thing I've noticed about all of your cookbooks it's about family, it's about comfort, it's about how food connects people. And when I think about you, that's what I think about. You're a connector. But in a world that is so divisive right now, we're dealing with war overseas. We're dealing with the divisive political climate. And you are a connector to so many people from so many different backgrounds. I feel like when you say that food is a connector, it truly is. And you are a perfect example of that. How do you manage, or what is it that you think that it is about food that enables you to do that with people from all different backgrounds, with all different beliefs, who maybe don't necessarily agree with each other on other things?
Well, I think that, people always say they have all these problems and everything. And the best way to handle these problems, quite honest with you, the chef art school of handling problems, feed them. There are no angry people, just hungry people. I think that, as I was saying about the importance for us as Americans to take care of each other, if you want people that care about other people, I mean, I travel extensively around the world. I cook for an ambassador in Portugal. I'm going here, I'm going there. Do people really care about it? Maybe some, maybe no. Okay. Because there are a lot of critics who say, why doesn't he just do that in his own country? Right. Mm-hmm. But why do I do it? Simple. I want people in other parts of the world to see another face of America. America is generous. America is friendly, kind, funny, engaging. We also are creative. We have the ability to take a mess and organize it. And if we have a mess, she ain't going to see it because we can hide it. We invented show business. Okay. It's important. I think it's important that, that we get out in the world and people see us. And I think that we cannot live under a rock and think that the world's just going to pass us by and we're not going to be affected by it. We don't live in that type of world anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It bothers me. And I think that in these very tough times in politics and everything where people are going at each other. Now, listen, mm-hmm. I have cooked for both sides of the fence. Bob Graham, Jeb Bush. I cooked at the White House for President Bush, Obama, Clinton, all of them. And I was there as a cook in the kitchen. And I was there with people who'd cooked for all those different presidents, whether they were Democrat, whether Republican. And when you served them, it didn't make any difference if they were Democratic or Republican. All that was important was they were hungry and you were there to serve.
Well, since we're on this subject, that's something I want to talk to you about because you have cooked for some incredible names that we think of. You've already mentioned a few. I heard you had the security clearance, starting with the governor, that allowed you to actually start cooking for other people. And amongst that list I saw was Princess Diana. And I know the list goes on, and I'm not going to make you go through it because, first of all, there's no way you can remember them all because there have been so many. But my question to you is, what stands out about any particular person? Like when we think of Princess Diana, she was very kind of secretive, but you actually get to be one-on-one with these people. And I wonder if there's any such celebrity like that or individual that has really touched your heart, that their story maybe stands out more than others.
Princess Diana, I was always taught when it came to people of her statue, you're not to approach them, they're to approach you. And the way that came about was I was the only chef Scotland Yard would approve to allow to cook for her. And I remember this beautiful turquoise dress she was wearing. And it was beautiful. She was very slender and very beautiful. And she sat at a table. If I remember, I want to say it was Phil Donahue, Marlo Thomas, and I think Oprah. No, Oprah was not there at the table, and Mayor Daley. There were some others. I wish I remembered the others. But as she got up from the table, she saw me, and I bowed to her, and she smiled, and that's all I needed. And that beautiful smile and that beautiful gesture was enough. Mm. I remember going into this little room and feeding His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I remember kind of crouching down and presenting him. I made this vegan styled fried chicken and my funniest story. I fed him a second time, and I make this like, I want to tell you something. Jesus, Buddha, Joseph, Mary, the most delicious dirty rice. But tell me something. How do you serve a holy man dirty rice? You ain't gonna call it dirty. So I called. I said, I said, His Holiness, this is holy rice.
Holy rice.
Holy rice. But it was, you know how like when you make dirty rice, it usually has like, they use chopped chicken liver and all that kind of stuff in it. This one had, when you had porcinis and stuff, which which gave it that kind of meatiness to it. Oh, it's delicious. It's one of my favorite dishes. And we served that, and he just loved it. And my most funniest thing was Oprah. Oh my God, this is my funniest story. She says to me, she says, Art, Mr. Mandela is going to come see us. And I said, oh, wow. I said, is Mr. Nelson Mandela? She said, well, honey, that's the only Mandela I know of. And she goes, I said, oh, wonderful. And I said, what shall we serve him? She said, well, we'll have it. His chef will call you and let you know. Talk to the chef. He said, well, he likes oxtail. I was like, done. I'm all about soul. Okay. And then he goes like, what about biryani? And okay, my friend Nashab, remember Nashab, you know him. South Africa has a very strong Indian cultural heritage. And so the biryani, which is a rice dish that's got all kinds of goodies in it, it's spicy.
So you're serving Nelson Mandela. You've just spoken to his chef.
And I do all this food and everything, and I hear a call. They call me saying, Miss Winfrey'd like to see you. I'm like, oh God. I run over to, do you remember how big Harpo Studios is?
Oh yes, huge.
Block. I run over, and she says, Art, I'd like for you to meet Mr. Mandela. And I'm like, holy, I don't get starstruck, but I truly got starstruck.
Yeah, I bet.
And I went up to him and, Mr. Mandela, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've always thought very highly of you and your work. And, it was so, his light was so bright. I can't really exactly remember exactly what I said or did or whatever. You have to remember too, that the days before there were cell phones and all that, there was just telephones. And no one would ever think about calling someone in the morning on the telephone too early. Okay. But now with cell phones, people will just will just call you like anything. So Oprah did not have a cell phone. So the reality is that if you wanted to have a minute to 2 minute or whatever with Oprah, you would get her in the morning for breakfast. So when you're making her favorite little egg white omelet with one egg yolk with vegetables, that's when you got to say, Miss Winfrey, how are you this morning? Miss Winfrey, what about if we do this? That's it. Because after that, it was business. Okay.
Yes.
But I was making her omelet. And I said, Miss Winfrey, yes, sir. Miss Winfrey, I said, you know Mr. Mandela? I said, yes, sir. She said, he's downright biblical. And she looked at me and said, well, honey, I didn't know if you were going to curtsy or bow to him. And I looked at her. I said, well, at least my bases were covered. It was truly amazing to think that a little country farm boy from Jasper, Florida, Tobacco Road, has done all this. And, it's been truly amazing. And, the adventure goes on. I've had the opportunity. We just did a little party for Milton, which was great. And I had King Charles's chef visit me, which was wonderful. And it was nice to treat him like a king, since he's worked 38 years to treat his amazing group of people like princes and queens and royals and everything that he does. And it was great. He loves barbecue and fried chicken.
Oh, well, you make the best. You make the best. That's for sure. I have to say, we're talking about all these big names, and, you were Oprah chef personal chef for 10 years. Everyone knows the story, that background story. But while you were in Chicago, you did something else too that was beautiful. To this day, it still stands. And that's starting Common Threads, which I understand you guys are going to be having an anniversary coming up very soon.
Right.
So Common Threads is is your philanthropic outlet that basically teaches children in underserved and adults areas how to not only cook for themselves, but to cook healthy foods and delicious foods. Tell me how that started. How did that come about?
Well, I'll start with Oprah. Oprah sent Jesus and I to New York after the 9/11 attacks to cook for a family who had been affected by 9/11. The father was making the delivery to Tower 1, and when it collapsed on him, and when he was just making a delivery, and the family just stopped when that happened, and then through the mayor's office and Senator Graham's office arranged for me to do some work at the Ground Zero, and so the night before at the Parker Meridian, bless their hearts, they let me use their kitchen, and I baked like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cookies. And then I've had Jesus running all over New York trying to find really beautiful baskets and everything. And he going like, they don't care. They just want good cookies. And I said, Jesus, I don't care. I said, poor things. They've been going through such horrors. Let's give them something nice. And, and here I'm showing up. So we packaged beautiful things of cookies, and we had so much. And we went and delivered cookies, and they were so happy. And I have the pictures. The pictures are just, and you see the faces of the people and everything. But so anyway, I had written Back to the Table, which was a New York Times bestseller. Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to write a book called World Table, about bringing the world back to the table. It was my answer to 9/11. I felt that when 9/11 happened, rather than bringing the world together, it brought the world far apart. Because basically the world was like, who are really our friends? Now the world was in those towers. But when you saw the list of people who were in those towers, the thing was, it was just horrible. And I'm a big believer, Sylvia, that a little food can do a lot, and you can really kind of. I feel like I can cure people with food, and I feel like I can calm people with food. So anyway, I wrote this little situation up, and I wrote, "For our world is a quilt, its people the fabric, all joined together by common threads: food, family, music, art. For music is the voice of the world, for you can hear its passion, feel its pain." Put all this together, and when I wrote my first book, I didn't know it, but Disney bought it, and it's this company, strange company called ABC, Hyperion. I didn't know who that was, and then someone said, "That's Disney." So anyway, so I went back to Disney, and Disney said, "Art, we just don't think the America's ready for it." I'm like, I looked at them and I said, "The mouse don't live in the house." I said, for a company based on imagination and dreams, it ain't happening. And I was so angry with those people. I was like, I don't care if I do another thing for y'all, whatever. I shoved it in my desk. And then along came these people from Minneapolis. I loved Minnesota, all those nice, educated people up there, with something called Perspectives. And they have something called Kids Cafe. And I went up there and started helping them with that. And I liked what they were doing. But I said, how could we do something like that, but even do more, and not just one location, but multiple locations. And I was telling Jesus about it. And at that time, Jesus never does anything in a small way. Jesus says, I want to buy this church. And I'm like, oh my God. I said, Jesus, your name is Jesus. You paint angels. And I'm Oprah Chef, and we buy a church. That says crazy. So we buy a church, sight unseen. And this woman shows up, and she says, why did you do all this? She says, well, I said, well, because Jesus says we need to teach kids. And through all that, he said, and after seeing what I saw, I said, well, I saw something, maybe we could do a variation, whatever. And Jesus has this idea, because we wanted to base ours on teaching children about how we as humanity are more alike than different through food. Food is our common thread. And because we look at each other and we think we're that different, but we really aren't. Okay. So we started, we couldn't use the church. Church had asbestos in it. Then we went down the street to another little church we opened up. They gave us a big plot of land in the park over here. We did a big garden. And that was in, oh my God, 20 years ago. And we started here in Kenwood Hyde Park. And then we started, and we had about 9 or 10 kids. And then we started with a few kids, and then started growing. And I started hawking Del Monte tomatoes to get money for it. And then I met a man who I didn't know who he was. I met him through the studios. And I went out to do Oprah's 50th. And these two great things happened. One, Oprah had fried chicken for her birthday. So you know what happened? The whole world ate fried chicken for their birthday because everybody wanted to eat fried chicken after Oprah ate it. And I mean, every star in Hollywood was eating it. And then the other thing, then I went to Beverly Hills. He wanted to meet, he wanted to meet some of his Venezuelan friends, and they were all like, blah, blah, blah. So I said, I'm going to go see Charlie. He said, you go see Charlie. So I went to go see Charlie, and he's a single dad. And I went into his bungalow there at the peninsula, and his little girl's running around, Lily. And he goes, man, I can't get her to eat. I said, well, let me show you something. And I ordered the chicken and the broccoli, and she came to me. And I said, Lily, try this. I put the broccoli in her mouth. I put it in my mouth, said, it tastes delicious. And she said, chicken. I said, oh, it tastes delicious. Mm. And he's going like, man, you're amazing. How did you do that? You're just like, how do you? And I said, this is something my mother told me. Mm-hmm. He goes like, how many do you want to teach? And I said, well, I don't know. As many as we can. We only can teach so many because there ain't so much money. And he goes like, I'm the grandson of Walter Annenberg. And I go, oh, your grandfather saved PBS. Yes. And I'm like, oh, he gave us $3 million.
Wow. Wow.
Common threads over a piece of broccoli.
And maybe some chicken too, because that's a great story, Art. And that's how Common Threads was able to come about. Because you have how many locations now?
I want to say there's about 9 states.
Wow. 9 states now have Common Threads. That's amazing.
Uh-huh.
So that brings me to children, which is something a lot of people love to tell the Art Smith story. I remember, I think the year was 2015. And someone said to me, did you hear about Art and Jesus? And I said, no, what? They said they are about to adopt 4 children. I was like, what? And the word spread like wildfire. I understand you guys started out as foster parents, but wow. Speaking of kids, since we're still on that topic, how in the world did this happen? Was this something that you and Jesus had planned to have?
No.
A brood of children?
I was with Oprah. Well, when we were in South Africa, we cooked for a group of orphans, and Jesus, we met a bunch of them. We were like, wouldn't it be great? Kept looking at them. They were so cute. We came home, and I was traveling with Oprah, and he calls me, he says, baby, I got something I want to talk to you about. I'm like, I never like those kind of I never like him. I never like that kind of thing. I don't like surprises. I'm like Oprah. I don't like surprises. So I come home and goes like, how would you like to adopt a kid? I'm like, okay, I'm all right with that. So we go to up in Waukegan to this children's home, and we start meeting a lot of children. We met some very young children who were very young, and then we met the second group of children, and there were 4 of them, and the head of the home there said that siblings are the most very difficult to adopt, that people don't want to adopt families, and they had advised to breaking them up. And I'm like, I don't want to be part of that story. Mm-hmm. I said, you just can't do that. You can't separate children like that. That's not fair. because when we're gone, they have each other to depend on, and they were just so sweet, and I said, what else do we have to do? And and I don't know, Sylvia. I mean, you've known us prior to children.
Yeah,
we can't have one cat. We had 5 cats.
right.
We can't have one dog. We had 4 dogs. I mean, now, Sylvia, I've got all my birds are like in Siberia. I don't have one bird. I have 12 birds.
Yes.
Okay. You can't hear them, but if I had them out here, you'd be going like, Art, you've got a pet store. Okay. I mean, we don't do anything in ones. It's always in 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s and 6.
Go
like
big or go home, Art Smith.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And they were 6, 7, 9, and 12 at the time. And wow,
right.
That was how many years ago? Did I say 2015? So you've got young adults now, and
yeah, they're doing great. And Angel is down the street from me. He's great. He wants to be a computer programmer, game developer, and my youngest wants to sell real estate. She's determined to do that, and my oldest daughter wants to she wants to create a not-for-profit to help kids.
Wow.
And then my other son, he's trying to decide what he wants to do, but that's okay, because quite honest with you, he has my middle name. It took me, I was going to be an artist. I was going to be this. I was going to be that. I was going to be a lot of different, a piano player. I was going to be everything until I finally checked, but that's okay, because it's
all worked out. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Look at the path you've taken. I want to talk about, let's talk about your foods, because I know what some of my favorites are, but I'm curious, what are you the most proud of that you make for people, and what always kind of is everyone's go-to? I love your fried chicken. I think it's crazy. I love that hummingbird cake. The first time I ever had hummingbird cake was at your restaurant, Table 52. And I said, what is this? And every time I think about you, besides the fact that I love you and you're this great guy, but first thing comes to mind is if I go to Art's place, I'm having fried chicken and hummingbird cake.
Right. Sylvia, what makes me proud is I don't serve anything that doesn't have a story. Everything that what you talked about all has a story, because the story makes it taste better.
Mm-hmm.
The fried chicken was Oprah's 50th birthday. The hummingbird cake was Maya Angelou's 75th birthday cake.
Where do the shrimp and grits come from?
It came from George and Barbara Bush's celebration and reading dinner.
Wow.
Everything that you've seen me come out with, there's a story behind it. And then there's some stuff that there's some that's connected to my family. I always say, my mama didn't teach me how to make fried chicken. The Colonel did. My first job was KFC. And
really?
Oh yeah. And but I met a lovely woman through her name was a friend of mine named Edna Lewis, a very famous Southern chef, and I learned the art of it from her, and that's where, like, my mother never would brine chicken or marinate it, which she did, and also the importance of the dredge and all that different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what makes it very special. Is if you treat it delicately, very preciously, then it's of course very good. So anyway.
Well, I can honestly say I've never eaten anything that you have made that isn't amazing. Okay, so what is your favorite food to make?
I love breakfast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're up early, so you like to get your day started?
If I don't make it, I like going out for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Then
that brings me to this. Is there a favorite breakfast place in Chicago you want to share?
11 City Diner, Manny's. Let me think somewhere else. Mitchell's.
Oh, I love it. You're going old school.
I love old school breakfast.
Yeah,
I don't like any of that foofy fancy breakfast stuff. But I do love me a fancy 5-star breakfast.
Okay. You have one in mind?
I think the Four Seasons makes a beautiful 5-star breakfast.
Yeah. Plus the atmosphere is wonderful. Okay, well,
and the Ritz.
The Ritz? Gorgeous. Okay, but what's your go-to restaurant in Chicago? I think we all have one. A place that you can go and everybody already knows your name anyway because you're Art Smith, but a place that you can go to, the food's always going to be consistent and good, and it's kind of comfort to you.
Gene Giorgetti's.
That's a good one.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the history. I love the stories. It and Gibson's Italia.
Well.
I love Gibson Italia because I love the view.
I always say it's the most romantic view in the city of Chicago.
Right. I mean, if you want someone to fall in love with Chicago, take them to see Flyover and Gibson's Italia. Flyover and Gibson's Italia. It's the most beautiful, enchanting, romantic with Chicago. But if you want people to really get what Chicago is about in its history, take them to Gene Giorgetti's because there's no other restaurant in the city. And I think there's only 4 or 5 wooden buildings left in Chicago. Yeah. I have something.
And sadly, the owner just passed away too. So.
Well, yeah, that's really sad. And Michelle that's really sad. And they have this amazing young woman from Italy who's making the pasta. Have you had it lately?
I haven't been recently, and I do love it.
Oh, you must go.
Okay, we'll go together.
And and her pasta is like crazy, and she makes the cacio e pepe is like the bomb. The bomb, Sylvia.
Okay, wow, that's saying a lot coming from you.
It's like it's as good or better than Rome.
Wow, we are definitely going. We are definitely going. Okay, and I have to say though, I want to let people know I did a podcast recently with Monica Eng, a real foodie in Chicago, a food writer. And she told me one of her favorite go-to places was Reunion at Navy Pier. Because,
really?
Yes, because she said she was talking about your fried chicken and your shrimp and grits. And we were talking about how this whole Navy Pier, a lot of people think of it as a tourist trap. And there weren't really any great restaurants there before. But you guys have brought so much to Navy Pier. I mean, your food is delicious. Yes, it's a touristy spot, but the food is solid, it's good, and it's so fun to go because you and Jesus are there very often. So I just wanted to let you know that you guys are definitely on the top of a lot of people's lists. I love Monica.
She's a sweetheart, yeah.
Have you gotten into the Bear? Have you gotten into the whole Bear thing in Chicago, the series that has introduced people to Italian beef and Chicago? Is that something you've gotten into at all?
I'm really anything that's all about Chicago and film and all that. I'm really, really, really excited about. God willing, the Creek Don't Rise. There's a show that I may be in that I just auditioned for. It's big deal, real big deal. You'll be the first to hear about it.
Ooh.
And it's with a big Hollywood A-lister, both of them. But no, I'm not that one. But my whole thing now is rugby because I bought into rugby.
Yes.
And so that's my big thing.
Okay, let's talk about that because I don't want to forget about that. I wanted to bring that up.
Right.
So you opened Sporty Bird at Time Out Chicago. Was it?
Right.
And it's all got that rugby theme. How does a chef go from being a chef and doing what you do to being an investor at a rugby team? How did that come about?
It's called Turning 64. Honey, nothing worse than a stale chef, okay? I needed to do something to kind of lift me up there, and what better was than professional sports? And there is not a chef in America or the world that has ownership of a professional sports team.
Right, and there you are, once again, kind of being that trailblazer.
And the best part about it is I bought it with fried chicken money.
And then Sporty Bird came about with that theme, right?
You said it, dear.
Yep.
Yes, Sporty Fried Chicken. Mm-hmm. And then we're getting ready to launch a fried chicken concern with a university called Sporty Varsity.
Cute.
Which I'm excited about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we have this robotic delivery system that'll actually will actually deliver it to the dorm rooms. I mean, this is a very fancy Connecticut school.
Wow. You're going to have robotic delivery servers with delivering your yummy chicken to the college dorms. Yep. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty special. That is pretty
Yeah.
special. You've always got something going on. So what do you have? What's the future hold for you right now? What's going on?
Well, as we stand now, we have Reunion Navy Pier, we have Blue Door Kitchen, we have Chicago Q, we have Sporty Bird. For those, some people don't know that with Lady Gaga and family, I have Art Bird. We have 51 locations with Live Nation parks. They're venues, they're amphitheater parks. 51, can you imagine?
That's fantastic.
And then at Walt Disney World, we have Homecoming. And the goal now is to put Sporty Bird in sports stadiums and Sporty Varsity in college and universities.
That is so great. Okay.
It's just a little bit of stuff. That's
Wow.
all. And potentially we'll be opening at O'Hare at a new hotel there, and Michigan at a hotel.
Wow, very exciting. Okay, what a fun conversation I've had with you. I know what I think about when I think of Art Smith, and I know what a lot of people think about when they think of Chef Art Smith. But what do you want people to think about you when they say, what is Chef Art Smith all about? What's his mission? What's his goal in life?
I guess, quite honest with you, Sylvia, it's like, I love feeding people and I love throwing parties. I love feeding people. I love entertaining people. I love making people happy. Because I feel like somehow or another that in turn, I don't expect anything of it. I just like making people happy because that's in my heart. That's what I love. I love to do is make people happy. And along the way that it'll in turn, make other people happy. It'll have a triple effect.
Well, I think you're doing that. I really do. And when I think about you, I think about Art the friend, Art the chef, Art the philanthropist, Art the giver, Art the food connector. I mean, that just makes up every fiber of your being. And I know that you have helped so many people. And I don't know if I've ever had the chance to tell you that I think you're pretty amazing. So thank you so much for doing this.
You're very sweet, darling. That's very kind. I love you too. And thank you. And, it's great, that to be recognized and for all your great works. And, to me, it's just only the beginning. Even at 64, I still feel like there's a lot of great things to do. And what better city? And, I get so sick and tired of people talking trash about Chicago, but
I'm with
there's
you.
not a better city in America that do great things in. And look at what it's done for us. I mean, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's a beautiful city. People are friendly. People always want to help each other out. And I'm so happy to call it home as well. And I know it's your adopted home. So we are very fortunate to live here. So Art Smith, thank you so much. You're the best. For more on the adventures of Chef Art Smith, check the show notes. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Supper with Sylvia. I'm Sylvia Perez. This podcast was produced by Jane Stevens with technical support and music by Donnie Cuddy.